So I thought what we could do is, I could read my book from front to back. You all could just kind of fall asleep, or we could talk about what you want to talk about, and maybe I can help you accomplish some things. So let's just start with the basics of what the book is about and what generational lamination is. Generational lamination, multi-generation lamination is the concept we're talking about. And although that is a huge umbrella, it's really a very simple concept that that you can use to make really cool stuff incredibly cheap with very low budget tools, a table saw, a belt sander. You're off and running. So here you see something anyone here could do. This is poplar and birch, and I glued these sticks together. I think everyone could do this, right? My wife and my mom could do this. Right? There you go. You just get a stick and glue and glue and glue and glue. Everyone could do that, right? So you'll see that here, and I've taken this back on the right way, but you can see how we just cut that off right here. That's not hard. That's like really easy.
You use special kind of glue?
No, not so much. Woodworkers glue, yellow glue. I used Type Bond, but I also use Elmer's and Elmer's wood glue, any yellow woodworkers glue. So I took a couple of these off. Anyone here could already need a table saw, but then I thought to myself, well, what would happen if I flip them over and I put them back together? And you can see if you flip them over and you put them back together, you get a chevron design. So you do that a bunch of times and you get a stick that looks like that, right? Now how hard was that? What did I do? Well, I took a stick, I took a number of sticks and I glued them together. Like this. And then I cut this up and I glued it together to this. That was so hard, and it took me all of 15 minutes. Not a hard thing to do. You know, there are other things you can do. Let's say I took it off of this end, and I didn't do the degree cut here. This looks like a 60 degree here, but I took a 90 degree off. And then I lopped off a bunch of pieces that looked like this, right? Kind of neat. Well, what are you going to do with them? Because if you flip them over, why'd you cut it in the first place? It looks the same. But if you give them a spin, end for end, you get another different kind of look, don't you? Yeah, different kind of look. A look that looks a lot like this, doesn't it? So, two different patterns, two different designs, same stick, just a different angle. Boy, this looks a lot like something. What does this remind me of?
Chessboard?
Chessboard, yeah, this is a chessboard. This is how you make a chessboard. That's how I made that chessboard back there, and many, many others like it. So when we talk about multi-generation lamination, we're talking about laminating sticks together. Lamination is a funny word for glue. Glue and clamps. We take a bunch of sticks and we glue them together in a particular pattern, such as this. This would be the first generation. And then we harvest from this stick, we cut it up and harvest from it sections so that we can glue them together. And that's how we get this kind of a thing. This would be considered a second generation. A second generation. Now, it wasn't very hard, was it? What would happen if I offset these? Well, if I offset these, it would look something like this, right? Let's see if I can get this. These three here, you see these on the end here. We have a name for this pattern. Who knows what it is? Herringbone, the herringbone pattern. You find, I have found, I have found that a lot of the techniques of multi-generation lamination are found in quilting. It's quilting, really. Ladies and their quilts are way ahead on this. So here we've seen 3 really simple, easy to do projects, 2 generations, just glue, couple of clamps, 15 minutes in your shop, and you're already into something like this. Now I stole this from the kitchen on my way out. My wife's looking at me. All right,
Put
so
her name on it.
there are pieces of onion on it still. I'll get them off. But look here and think about what we just talked about. Here in the center, how many generations? Just one. And then I took cuts from it. This is the same board. I cut this section and I flipped every one and I put them back on. I cut this way, flipped everyone, put them back on. Now I've got first generation, second generation on the outside, and then to kind of give it a closure, I put a border on either end. So this is 15 minutes one night cutting and gluing, 15 minutes the next night cutting and gluing, and then 10 minutes on a belt sander, and then you get out the mineral oil, baby oil, butcher block oil, some natural kind of oil to finish it, making sure that you're careful not to use a nut oil if you have people with nut allergies. So this isn't hard at all. It just looks deceivingly complex, and that means you get a big ooh-ah factor. You look at it and go, ooh-ah, and you look at it and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, I did that. Really not that difficult. There are a lot of little tips and little things that are in the book, but the basics are really very simple. They're not always easy, but they are simple. And the difference between easy and simple is how many times you're willing to try it before you can really perfect it. 2 or 3 times, you'll be turning out really wonderful stuff. Here's another example. I thought I'd show you this one over here. If you could just kind of turn this way. How many generations? One, right? And anybody could do this, right? This is really simple stuff. You just get a bunch of cherry and a bunch of oak. You cut them to the same width. You glue them together with clamps this way. That's not hard. Now let's take this piece and let's harvest from it some sections. Here I've cut these off here. There we go. This is what we had. This is what we had, right? You see that? And then I cut them off. I harvested from the first generation, and now I'm going to flip every other one and make a second generation. There we go. How's that look? Now we're going up and down and up and down. This is a very basic design called chevron design. Chevron, when you think of chevron gas and you see that's chevron. These are chevrons. And I got a bunch of them, and I cut them all, and then I glued them together. And you can see, yeah, it is. It's beautiful, it's elegant, and it's very easy to do. I mean, I think we've seen that, right? A couple minutes on a belt sander, and you're ready to start finishing it. This is a lazy Susan, of course. The back here is the first generation, and the front is 2 generations, chevrons. How do you know what angle to cut it at? You don't. Cut it whatever angle you want, it doesn't matter. They'll all match if the segments are the same size. They will all match. You can't make a mistake. You could make a mistake if your pieces here, your original first generation, was not consistent. But with this consistency, you get this consistency. Now, what would happen if we took this chevron display 2 generations and decided to apply another generation to it? Well, what would that mean? Well, let's see. I'd have to pick spots on here, and I'd have to make my cuts at precise points going this way, right? But it's doable, isn't it? It's just a matter of harvesting harvesting from this second generation a third generation. And that's how you get this. I don't know if you can see the chevrons in there. I can. But they're there. This is just one step away from that same material, same board, same everything, except we cut it and glued it 3 times instead of 2 times. Notice I'm never dealing with small pieces of wood. Like you look here and you go, oh, there's so many small pieces of wood. How did you hold them together when you're... I never would touch a small piece of wood. I'm holding the segments containing many small pieces of wood. So you're never trying to glue one little piece to another. And no, this is harvesting from a second generation to create a third generation board. So, and that's how you get all this funky stuff here, up here. This is where the natural, where it would fall. I don't know if you can see it here, but let's see if I can show you a chevron. Let's see. Yeah, sure. Right there, do you see a section of chevron? Mm-hmm. There it is. Right there, do you see a section of chevron? Yeah, well, that's how we do it. Okay. So this is 3 generations. This also, same stick, same board, same everything, 3 generations. But this I used a different angle and put them together in a different configuration. Well, how many different angles can you use? Well, how many different angles are there? That's how many you could use. Well, how many configurations could you choose? Well, how many different configurations are there? I guess what I'm telling you is that this form of art is a well that never grows dry. You will never be bored in your shop again, ever. This is so much fun. And sometimes I'll go into a project knowing where it's going to end. And sometimes I'll go into a project and just, wow, I had no idea that the 4th or 5th generation was going to give me this kind of craziness. So, look here, look at this, a very elegant little cheese tray, right? How many generations? 1. Very, very simple. This stuff here is flooring. Yeah, I found that half-empty boxes of flooring are a great place to get material. So this is flooring, this is ash, this is Brazilian walnut, I think. So I'm just about ready to start thinking about inviting you to ask questions. So, but here's another one. Up to now, we've talked about flat work, but all of this can be applied to round work also. This went on the lathe. And how many generations? 1. How many generations? 2. And then if you slice this at a particular angle, at a particular point, you get this design going all the way around there. How about that? Now, of course, this is no longer flat. like some of the other pieces of work, but that doesn't mean that you can't use a stay construction, much like much like a boat, right? The pieces of wood for an oak barrel, right? They all fit on the side to make and hold water in, and so you can put these on a lathe just the same. Put this on a lathe by making it into a round object this way. So, what would you guys like to talk about? Not all at once, you can overwhelm me.
What are some of your projects you're working on now?
You know, I just finished those backgammon boards, and they were difficult. But this brings up something you and I had mentioned earlier, and that is if there wasn't enough variety, and if there wasn't enough crazy, unique art to have with just one generation to a second generation to a third generation, let's do this. Let's make one generation like this. Nice. But then let's make another separate single generation of this. And let's take these two separate generations and combine them into the second generation. And the reason I bring this up is because the backgammon boards require two first-generation laminations to come together to create the second generation, or to create the board. Where everything else we've discussed so far and looked at, it's been make a board, cut that board, make a new board. Cut that board, make a new board. Now we're bringing in two separate entities to create the second generation. And you can see these here, right? All four of these. These are the four different possibilities for a second generation lamination of those two sticks. Right? You can see that, right? Bring these over here.
Can you cut on those boards? I mean, is the, like, use it as a cutting board?
Yeah, absolutely. You can use them for so many things. But yes, you can cut on them, use them for a cutting board, as many of these are cutting boards at our house. Many cutting boards are end grained, many cutting boards are running grain. You can use cutting boards either way. If you're a professional, with a cutting board, you definitely want end grain. If you're not a professional, using cutting boards in your home, regular use, end grain, in my opinion, is better to stay away from because it's harder to maintain. But it is much easier on knives for butchers and people who are cutting every day in the kitchen.
What do you mean by end grain?
Yeah.
What do I mean by end grain? Oh, that's a good question, young lady.
I just get to use the boards, but I don't know.
Well, here you'll see the flow of the grain moving this way, right? Pretty, isn't it? What do you think of that?
That's the end grain.
That's the end grain. So an end grain, you can see that these guys, they all know about this, but so an end grain board would take a segment like this and put it up and glue another one and another one and another one so that the knife comes down into the end grain. And here, this end grain, if you were to take a microscope and you were to look at the end grain, it would be like you were staring down at the open segment of a huge number of straws, because wood tends to be just like that, like straws this way that are running this way. Okay?
So professionals have to use...
Professionals tend to use end grain because they're much easier on a knife, and sharpening knives is a big deal. And because they take care of them on a regular basis and they don't let them get dried out, they oil them. Whereas in a residential situation, you know, they'll sit on the shelf, it might even end up in a dishwasher, you know. And in which case, greater protection is needed. It's much harder to penetrate the straws on their side than it is from their ends. Am I right? Yeah. So here, all the water in the world's going to bounce right off of here. Some, of course, will penetrate, but nowhere near as much as if I just poured it straight into the end of the straws, so to speak. But pouring it straight into the end of the straws is the whole idea with end grain, because it will absorb professional oils that professionals use to take care of their butcher block cutting boards. Does that answer your question? Good. So let's pretend that we cut along my finger and all the rest of this is gone. Do you see that anywhere here? Sure you do. Yeah, there's one right there, isn't there? Another one there, another one there, another one there. And here, you can see right? Sure. So, what did I do? I took some sticks, glued them together with a unique pattern, 2 different ones. And then from these, I cut diamonds, many diamonds, diamond shapes out of them. And then I put them together in 4 unique ways. Right? This one. This is 2 first-generation laminations. This one. This one and this one. Very, very, very easy. Very easy.
It's really dimensional, isn't it? I mean, you look at one way, it's like little boxes, and you look the other way, it's a star.
It is really unique.
It is really neat. Really,
Yeah, and there are other ways I could have put these together, but I don't think they would have looked quite as good. So these are really good. Now, I'm going to give you a heads up. I wouldn't start with these. I said they were easy, and they're not. They're simple, but they're not easy. And the reason why stars can be very difficult to achieve is because they require an exact measurement where this star here is exactly, Jim's over there nodding his head, so it can be really hard to ensure that their length is equal on all 4 sides, which means that the segment that your blade is passing through has to result in an exact length too. If you try it, you'll see what I mean, and then you'll go, oh, I get what he was talking about, and it takes some time finagling your saw blade to get that kind of accuracy out of it, but as you can see, you can do it.
You put a jig or you do it freehand?
I do it, I put a jig on my miter box. I put a jig on my miter box, which determines particularly how long the segment I cut will be, right? But when you do that, that means that you are putting a piece of wood on the end of a stick, and then you're going to cut, and then this piece you just cut off of there is going to be free and bound between a wall, the jig wall, and a moving blade.
Oh.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you. That's fun. So, very simply, you make that cut, put it in, get it just in, you make that cut, but you do not lift that saw blade until the blade has stopped moving. And once the blade has stopped moving, you're free and clear. You're turning your saw on and off a lot. You don't lift the blade until after the blade has stopped moving. You know, so I got on that because someone asked me about the back end boards, right? So let me. I just finished 3 of these. And think they came out pretty good. But this is an example of what we were talking about.
It's a boy's Christmas house.
Oh, nice.
Not yet.
Yeah.
A couple of neat things with these. These are I hid magnets inside of here so that I don't need a clasp. And you can just say, boop, see, pulls itself closed. Huh? Okay, so let me see if there's a way I can. Oh, yeah, maybe I can use these. Yeah, thanks, baby.
You got a bunch of little kids there.
I was a Boy Scout. All right. And I'm going to kind of
Oh, gosh, you need
Jimmy
help?
Joe this. Stand by, please stand by. All right. If you could, I'm just going to stay still. Do you see the stick inside there? Do you see it?
On the board?
On the board?
Yeah, on the board.
See?
You see it though? Yeah, it's got a piece of, it's got
Yeah.
this piece, and this one. It's a segment,
Oh, yeah.
right there.
Okay.
Okay, so, how did I do that? Well, let's pretend I had a piece of this material that went like that, and went like this, with the cherry in between, right? Okay. Well then, I cut at an angle, and you can see how I could just harvest that right out of it. Okay, so how many generations are we talking about here? Well, the original stick, made of 3 pieces, was first generation, and this is second. It's really very simple. Making that stick you're looking at inside of there, very simple. All right. But I need more than just the light points, don't I? So, there we go. See it? Yeah. There it is. All right, let's, I asked Matt to get me the whiteboard, so I feel compelled to use it. All right, let's see.
Keep an eye on that to make sure you don't lose your jacket.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, let's just do that. Good. All right. Good. Let's do another one. Separate one. There. You know, sometimes the difference between making incredible wood art and not is just knowing a few little tips like this that can get you way into the ballpark. Then everybody thinks you're, wow, he's just such a wow. How about that? All right. How many generations are up on the board? One. But I have 2 different ones, don't I? One first generation here and one first generation there. It's a nice looking sticks, don't you think? What now if... Cut that. Yeah, sure. Let's do that. And we're harvesting from these sticks. Oh, see, I did that one wrong. I'm coming. The angles are a bit tricky, but it's not that. Oh boy, that one, I messed up. Didn't I? Isn't You know what you, you'll love this. You know what you do when you mess up a backgammon board?
Use the fireplace.
Well,
But you make something else out of it.
Yeah.
you can. This was a backgammon board gone bad. Backgammon board's gone bad. Oh, I bet I could. Anyway, this was a backgammon board that went bad. One of the neat things about this is, no matter how bad you do, everyone's gonna love it. Let's see if you can. This is a gift for a friend. I haven't given it to him yet, but this is a backgammon board gone bad. Right? Well, this was the bottom and the top. Now, we don't throw away scraps, do we? No.
Burn them, Jim.
No. Yeah, your pieces are so funky, you just look at them and you go, geez, that looks a lot like a lazy Susan. And then, well, the bottom and the top are accounted. What about the scraps from either side? There it is. There. One scrap was there, and one scrap was there. Actually, it's more like this, if you can see it, but maybe you can't. But these two pieces that I've used to make this, call it a cutting board or a serving tray or whatever you want, came from either side, and were scraps, cut-offs. And then I showed you the bottom and the top. That's what you do when you do this. Only you're in your shop and you're cutting actual sticks instead of whiteboard. I think a lot of you see where this is going. I'll just. Okay, this is our stick, right? And we were working with a blue stick. I'm experimenting now with dyes and dyeing wood using the same methods that they make pressure-treated lumber. And it's had some explosive results. But, yeah, look. I brought this from my friend Jim. I cut this stick this afternoon. Poplar, look at that.
Oh, yeah.
I got red inside and out. How about that, huh? And people say I'm crazy. Okay. There we go. I do a lot of dyeing of veneers. Oh, this blue is just not happening. Let's go with green. I do a lot with dyeing veneers, as you can see from some of these weird colored things up here. But I've only recently experimented with trying to get dye to penetrate to make an entire piece red or green or pink or orange or whatever.
Do you ever use like natural things like blueberries and strawberries? Is that-
For my dyes, no,
Good.
no, all
Commercial?
unnatural stuff. I buy it from Woodworkers Warehouse. It comes in powder form. It's really amazing. I do one, I don't know if you call it natural, but if you take rust and you mix it with apple cider vinegar, you get an oxidation takes place and it creates this material. They call it Ebony X. This
Black?
is what people call jet black and will not come off of anything. So it's very, yes. All right, let me see. I'm talking about backgammon boards, I think, right? Something like that. And this one goes to here, right? Something like that. Okay, we're making a backgammon board, aren't we? All right, good. So we are now going to cut these two first generation laminations and harvest from them segments to make our backgammon board, right? Right. So let's cut it away. There's one. Oh, yeah, I see it. Everybody starting to see where we're going here? Get this all done. Oh, I did it backwards, didn't I? What the heck? Isn't that the funniest thing you've ever seen? Yeah, I did it backwards. Let me do this one more time. What did I say what happens when you make a mistake making a backgammon board?
We get more
Makes
cheese
You
boards.
get
and
more
cutting
cheese boards.
Great, yes.
Absolutely.
Your wife goes, "Geez, honey, that looks great." That's what she- All right. All right, orange. It was the central neutral that needs to be the same as that. It is these outside fellows that. Who can tell me how many colors you need to make a backgammon board? How many different types of colored wood? 3, right? 3. White, orange, white. And from this, we're about to harvest. All right, I'm gonna make those cuts. And now I'm gonna cut away the unused segment. Yeah. How do you like that? Okay. So what exactly do I have here? Well, if I took this